Holiday tech stumbles, crashes, and fails.
For some, the end of 2018 was pretty sobering.
Today, a provocative post-mortem into year-end fails.
Future forward looks backwards.
I'm Steve Rosenbaum.
And I'm Gene DeRose. Let's launch.
You know, is it a bummer to look at crashes at the end of the year? I think it's okay.
I think it's okay, and I think it's a mixed bag because, it's having too much business, right? Rather than having too little business. So there's always a little bit of that kind of light, although Christmas is a bad time, right? It's the first time someone turns some of these things on. You don't want things to malfunction then.
You know, I'm always surprised when people say they're doing a relaunch or a whatever between Christmas and New Year's, because it's like all the employees you've got on the team that want to be on vacation are not the ones you want. And so actually we're going to do a bunch. We're going to, look at, but let's start with Instagram because, boy, they made a boo-boo, huh?
It's so hard to read these things. They've toyed with their model before, and look, Instagram. So the boo-boo that we're talking about, so people know, is this sort of movement, or to what at least one article called a Tinder-style visual format, and I don't think that's fair. I think it's more of an extension of this whole story mode. So the idea that you would swipe sideways to go see something else is not just from Tinder, and there's no rating things hot or not or anything, but it is new and it's dramatic. And look, Instagram was probably the first one to have a visual feed that went up and down. So why would you start left to right?
Well, and they apologized. They said it was supposed to just be a small test, and then somehow it got rolled out to the whole platform. But one of the things I guess I wonder about, historically, Instagram has been its own operation, separate from Facebook, different engineering team, different leadership, and that is changing. The founders are gone somewhat abruptly.
We're on now for a year or more, and if you include some other people, it's over the last 18 months. So yeah, there's no doubt about it. We still don't really know why they left, but certainly it seemed they were being asked a little further into the Borg and didn't like that. But look, the question is with Tinder, they've maintained an innovation and a beat the upstart.
You mean Instagram, because I know you just said,
what did I just call
Tinder?
I don't mean Tinder.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really weird.
Yeah.
I don't even want to use the word Freudian. But look, they beat back Snapchat. They innovated several times. Their numbers have gotten astronomically large, and they've flattened a little bit in the growth. I don't know. Do you touch things too much? What do you think?
I think people say with great passion, I'm leaving Facebook and I'm just going to be on Instagram. And I think that in the larger Facebook universe, they understand that they can't really do innovation. The Facebook platform is, at least in the US, somewhat of an oldsters hangout. And
yeah. Less to do with innovation than does that those are the people there. So if they're in that club, no matter how hot the club is, it's a place where old people are.
And by the way, let's not forget that along the way, IGTV has been something of Facebook's trying Facebook video, they're trying, Facebook Watch, they're trying IGTV, all of which have kind of come up with goose eggs of some version or another.
I mean, I think IGTV for sure, we've already said this because we were right there at launch, it's the first thing that dead on arrival. I mean, I don't even know I think they just want to quietly have it go away and have video just be core to the Instagram service. And I think that was their big mistake,
Yep.
So we'll see. But that's one version of fail.
All right, so let's do another fail. So Alexa had a fail. And I guess it didn't happen to me, so I don't fully understand exactly what happened. But
apparently there's was an overload. And let's here's one thing I think that's important for people to know, because this has to do with things like Siri as well as another story of overload, which we'll get to, which is the Philips in-home stuff. when things are served from the network, weird things can go wrong suddenly, right? I think there's an instinct that you have that the stuff is right there. And the reason I mentioned Siri is that it always surprised me that the intelligence in Siri's recognizing what you're saying needed to go ping the internet, right? It couldn't sort of instantly answer you. And it's the same thing, if these things are not connected to the internet, and if there's stumbles on the Wi-Fi, and if the server crashes, trouble, right? So the whole thing just wasn't able to deal with it. And that's a symbol of their success and of the mass market. When you get these devices down to $25, $50, $100, $150, the masses are going to pour in.
So you think this was Amazon just not calculating server load? I mean, was it as
that to a certain extent? I mean, I don't know the degree to which there easily could have been certain kind of bugs. I don't know if it's a straightforward server overload, but it wouldn't surprise me if it had to do with the onboarding, because you're going to have a lot of people hacking through that. And and let's also remember that Alexa has added levels of complexity that may or may not have to do with this. So the fact that you can access your Sonos and your Amazon Prime on your TV and all sorts of other things, I think starts to put a lot of challenges there for them. But look, that is about something that's a wild success. So,
and yet I'll just say, just to pick on Amazon for a minute, when somebody makes the decision, they say, oh, okay, I'm going to try this home speaker thing. I got it for Christmas and I'm going to plug it in, but I'm a little scared of it. And then it's not seamless in an onboarding. Like I can imagine some number of people just going, you know what, return this thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. This is the first chance you get. And look, if they're going deep into the mass market, these are people that are, the late comers, the people that are a little afraid of tech. And so if the thing is anything less than perfect for them, they're going to be pretty darn scared.
All right.
Also, one other Freudian slip, Steve, because when I first read the article that you sent from The Guardian, I read it as Amazon Alexa crashes after Christmas Day overlord.
Yeah.
Funny. The overlord of Christmas Day now is Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, so. Indeed, he is. All right, so those two are harmless, right? Instagram goes sideways for 2 minutes and they fix it. Amazon has a bad first day for Christmas, whatever. But the next one is actually more important, and I want to spend a little bit of time on it. So 911 went down across the U.S. After a CenturyLink outage. And that one is no joke. I mean, that's you're putting people's lives on the line. And there's all kinds of, if you read the internets, there's all kinds of conspiracy theories about what actually happened.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is, if as it appears, it was just there wasn't anything nefarious going on, doesn't matter, because I think it introduces the concept of nefarious possibilities, because it sure feels like it could be hacked. It reminds me a little bit of the 9/11 era. The idea was that bin Laden and others got ideas from U.S. military disaster movies and things like that. And so I do worry about some of that. There's so many ways for things to go wrong. And it's a fitting end to 2018, which was a year where internet stumbling and bumbling and lack of maybe mature management of things starting to possibly affect lives in a significant way.
So I'm gonna acknowledge to being a little bit of a dummy on this story. I didn't know what CenturyLink was, and I assumed it was just some West Coast cable, something, not my problem. And then I read, if you read into the articles a little deeper, here's the paragraph that kind of stopped me cold. CenturyLink is one of the largest telecommunications providers in the U.S., providing internet, phone, and backbone services to major cell carriers, including AT&T and Verizon. What the fuck? Who are these guys? I mean, do you know who they are?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of is what it says it is, and it underscores that there was a shift over the last 20 years after the Telecommunications Act that did a bunch of different things. It sort of separated a lot of the players. So the telephone companies we're hit with this kind of must carry, and this has to do with net neutrality too. Has to do with being able to use lines that others operate. So they backed out of operating those things a lot and left it to people that are running the backbone and the hardware. The history of the internet and its interconnections goes all the way back to that stuff. So, but we don't hear about them, right? But I don't know enough about them as a corporation.
Well, again, just to be baffled a minute longer, this is the TechCrunch article, and it says, in this case, the outage affected only cellular calls to 911.
It's insane.
So it's not just that your phone went down. It's that your phone only went down to they're the 911 backbone for wireless providers, I guess. Right.
The idea that these things intersect like that also, whether is a little bit scary. It's a chain reaction kind of thing. I wonder what else was at the edge of that. I think one of the reasons we don't hear about this stuff is that this is sort of deep, secretive, delicate stuff, and so you don't really want to know. But
so let me ask you the question: do you have any landline left in your life?
It is such a barely there thing that it's unbelievable. I mean, by that I mean we never use it. We only rarely initialize a call from our desktop, from our landlines, but they'll come in on landlines, and the only ones we ever would answer are ones where we fully recognize. My wife and my family will try the landline if the cell doesn't work, etc. But it's a problem actually in a number of levels, since that is the phone number of record in so many situations for us going forward.
So so the fact that you have copper wire is good for me to know. So if we ever have like World War III, I'm just going to drive to your house.
I get, yeah. Well, it is fed in through FiOS, so it could be that it's no longer. In fact, I know for a fact it's no longer copper based, and I think let's just take a pause back into the CenturyLink for a second. I think this has a lot to do with things going fully digital and being carried, or the equivalent of internet. I'm no longer copper wire. Even when I make a local phone call, I have to dial 19141 area code even to my local. So I think this is part of everything being digital, even if it appears to not be.
All right, so 911 went down. That was bad, and now we're gonna get to the one that if it didn't hit your health, it hit your wallet, or could have hit your wallet. 2018 was a terrible year for crypto, right? I mean,
oh my gosh, yeah. And look, there's those that say the fundamentals and the technology and the usage and all that other stuff are good, or that even that money was raised, but nothing compared to the expectation. But the bottom line is the danger has always been the speculative side of Bitcoin, and it kind of went apeshit, not just in terms of 5 or 7 or 15 different categories of Bitcoin, of cryptocurrency being in place, but this whole notion of ICOs, initial coin offerings, which people may or may not know about, which invites you to do kind of 3 things at once. You're investing in a currency, you're investing in a new company, and you're investing in the new technology that delivers things. And I think there was just far too much of this stuff.
So
just way too much.
So I have a tiny little bit of money in Bitcoin, like like thousands of dollars, but not.
That's the value of Bitcoin, right?
Like everything I read in preparing to do this podcast today, like even the most optimistic kind of happy talk, which talked about, it's a good year and it was a year of consolidation, but things are good. Like nobody thinks we're going to bounce back. And I have a bunch of friends who've, were involved in Bitcoin crypto stuff that are being pursued by the government. There's charges being filed. I mean, there's a lot of like some.
Well, I think it's a metastasized version of the .com boom. So many people and so many sketchy people rushed into this so quickly. It's like 1,000 times bigger because the internet itself is 1,000 times bigger. But I guess I will just come back to one thing, which is the speculative nature of the value of the currency is really, you know, that it's separate from the idea of will we be using cryptocurrency? Will we be using the blockchain? And I guess I would think about the dollar. If the dollar was so crazy and volatile, up or down, would we be like? I feel like it has to settle into a place where it doesn't even really move that much anymore. Or is it like gold? I don't really know enough about that, but I do feel like there's mixed signals, you know, and the Fred Wilsons and others of the world that have invested not in the Bitcoin but in the blockchain. I don't know. I'm just not. Maybe now is the time to throw a little more money into it, though.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to stay on the sidelines. All right. So then, as a related topic in terms of things that went sideways, you know, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about civil. So just to kind of bring our listeners up to speed, for those of you who don't know about it, there was this organization, still exists, this organization that said, you know, we're going to reinvent journalism by creating an economic infrastructure called civil, and it will allow us to get journalists a clearer ownership of their editorial, and as a result, clearer economic relationship to what they produce. It had really good supporters. It had a lot of good heat and light. That, you know, we both know people that are involved in it, and it really just went sideways.
And just to be clear, because it connects to the last bit, you know, what went sideways was their attempt to raise capital through a coin offering that fell flat on its face because, frankly, it happened way too late in the wave of these things. A year ago, 20% of them were home runs. By October of this year, about 3% of them, you know, were home runs. And again, I just think this is a problem, you know, or you're asking people to invest in the company, in the currency, or to just be practitioners in this marketplace, right? The marketplace hasn't even really been given a chance. This, you know, these ideas that in the content categories, you know, a new form of remuneration for content creators combined with a more elegant way to move towards micropayments.
So did you buy any civil crypto?
No, because for me that's a category, but I looked at it and would be an eager user and a dabbler in what they would start to introduce from a product and the show me some journalism that's changing in how it can be distributed and purchased. So, but I don't know. I made a decision 2 years ago that I didn't want to dabble in crypto investments.
So the thing I found interesting in reading the coverage of from the Bridge, the Brooklyn Business News site that we found the articles about, was that in order to buy civil coins for civil, it was a 44-step process.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Now, I'm a fan and I'm a supporter, and I guess I kind of in my gut knew that it was not like just swiping a credit card, but 44 steps seems like that's like you need some really dedicated friends to throw money at you.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if that hasn't affected the whole space over the last year, because I always make the distinction between the WordPress version of trying to create a website where you got to be a wonk, not a coder necessarily, but you got to do a lot of things and go through processes, and versus a Squarespace Wix kind of model. And I just think it's not as user friendly. The only user friendly thing so far has been like just kind of the Bitcoin investment app, which is really simple and invites you to do dangerous things.
so just so that we don't write off civil, they're saying quite publicly, not dead yet. Well, they're saying it in a Monty Python voice. They seem to be trying to plan to reemerge. there's some people that haven't, we'll put the link up on the podcast and people can read for themselves. But, the quote, I guess, that I would read from this, the Bridge article is, quote, "The advertising market has just shrunk radically," explained Sarah Bartlett, the dean of CUNY's Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism. She said that following Civil and she's intrigued by the project, but, quote, "the print world has just collapsed and the revenue streams for digital news is still very limited. That's the internet transformation we've seen over the last 20 years. That really is the thing that's, if I had to put a button on 2018 with one thing that is most kind of, I don't want to say haunting me, but making me cautious about 2019, we're at the end of one economic, infrastructure for ideas, and we don't seem to have a new one yet.
Yeah, and I think that the new-ish things aren't near maturity. We talked last week and the week before about things like VR and AI. And look, we also made a note about journalism's big comeback last week. And at the time, I think it was me or we both agreed, we made the distinction between the 2 or 3 biggest players in newspapers having decent rebounding, but the smaller guys and the individual journalists still having a hack of it. Look, I think the issue here is, Civil hasn't done anything yet that's a product. This is sort of like failing to raise as much money as you wanted in your Series A.
Yeah, or your seed. Yeah.
Your seed, yeah. Right? And so it's not an indictment of what they're doing, except maybe it's an indictment of how they went about it, right? Because expectations are important. And look, if it's a content play of some sort, it doesn't attain meaning for us until we know what that is. Where will it be manifest? Are they spreading the wealth? What's the product version of it that we're going to see?
All right.
Can they sell as an alternative to lots of guys? Whatever.
So Civil, stay tuned is the answer. One more fail, and then we'll go to the big Uber fail. And so Philips, I'm a big fan of LEDs, as you know, and I've got LED lights and a bunch of LED stuff, and Philips Hue also suffered a massive holiday outage, and their excuse is that servers failed to cope with demand, much like the Alexa story. So they sold a lot of light bulbs, and I don't know. Have you played in any of the home automation lighting stuff? Is that a place you're in?
A little bit, and from a distance. And ironically, way back in the old days, Jupiter, the research company that I ran for a while in the 90s, was really into it, because there was a time pre-internet browser when we thought that's where the wires are, that's where some of the progress might be made. So there was investments from big industrial kinds of companies. Look, but what happens right now again with this is it's a matter of the server and the onboarding, people trying to figure it out. It's a little weird, and I would say it doesn't surprise me that it's Philips, less experience with this sort of thing. It probably isn't even an insane amount of demand. I can't imagine that they sold tens of millions of these things.
Well, I opted into the smart, all of these guys no one wants to be the guy making light bulbs, right? No one wants to be no one wants to be the dumb pipe. So everyone wants to own the consumer. So right. Samsung has a smart home package that connects all their devices and has a hub, and I opted for the smart home protocols, which have a bunch of different technologies that plug into them. I like, what's interesting is the Philips stuff is really pretty, and like whenever I go looking for light bulbs or devices, I always hold them in my hand, and then I go, it won't speak to my smart home hub. I've already like Samsung succeeded in getting me to be kind of in their ecosystem.
Yeah, and I'm curious with the outage and the general way in which these things are unfolding. All this is running in as part of your whole network in the home, right?
Yep.
It's not
it's all No,
separate network. It's all part of the Wi-Fi network and the hubs and the, if you went to your, if you saw all the devices that were attached, these things would be a bunch of them.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't gone. I'm not off the deep end. My door doesn't have a lock on it that works on my refrigerator and my dishwasher, my washing machine. Like I'm not like I know people that literally everything they buy has to be connected to their smart home, so their fridge can tell them when they're out of milk or whatever that is. I'm not that guy.
Well, one of the things I think that this also points to is the culpability of the telephone companies or the cable companies that you're getting your internet connections from. Now, by culpability, I don't mean it's their fault, but I just mean they are leaving us hanging out to dry.
Yeah.
Because there is no oversight or management over this stuff. And when you pay people have heard me gripe about my FiOS forever, and I'm kind of trapped. There's nothing else I can do. It's a high level, but the thing short circuits. I get outages in the middle of my, on demand. Someone once told me I should be inside all my iOS devices, changing the channel locations so that they weren't all jammed together. It's a kludge. They're lucky stuff even, works. And I can see how, that's why I asked if it was on the same network.
Yeah.
And that's a separate, right? That's a Philips server issue.
All right. So last fail, we've got just a couple of minutes left, but we would be remiss if we did not talk about the largest and most memorable fail of the 2018 holiday season, and that would be the failure of the U.S. government.
It's very sad. I don't know whether, I'll say this. I think that if there's a technology and social media angle to this, it's the degree to which, ironically, this is almost a quiet period where you can sneak something through. I'm not sure that this is a reason why they did it, but it's been a kind of I can't believe it's not a 3-alarm fire in the news. It just feels like it's a little covered as a little bit ho-hum.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of outrageous to me.
Well, part of it is if you watch, what you and I know, because we've been in the media business a long time, is this is the required 2-week vacation of every senior executive. So if you watch the local news, the news, the national news, you'll see the third string anchor, the person who desperately wants to get behind the anchor desk, gets their shot between Christmas and New Year's. Why? Because no one's watching, right?
Right.
So the editors are all on vacation. The managing editors are all on vacation. Everybody is, somewhere with a drink, a little umbrella drink in their hand. So everything is left to the B team. And so, essentially, I think the government
the edge is dialed down. There's no, right. There's not, everything feels a little bland.
Right. I think the thing that's so interesting is, Trump said in that now infamous White House meeting with Pelosi and Schumer, we're going to shut the government down. I'm taking responsibility for it. It's my shutdown. You can't have it. And that got recorded by, 30 cameras. And so now he's trying to say, well, the Democrats. And essentially Pelosi and Schumer are like, A, we haven't taken control of the House yet. B, it's not our problem. And C, what part of we're not giving you a dime for your damn wall do you not understand?
I think that Trump is, consciously or unconsciously, there's a calculation in this that seems to just repeat. Some of it has to do with the normalization of terrible behavior and things like that. The other is, I feel like he's looking at it and saying there's no downside to this. It may just fail, but there's upside to it maybe. But there's only so mad people can get at me, and that's and I work. It may have been what happened to Mark Zuckerberg this year. Another privacy thing, another apology.
Maybe. All right. Well, so as we run out of time, I'm just going to ask you, I'm going to spring a question on you. 2019, optimistic, pessimistic, terrified, light at the end of the tunnel. I have kind of an answer to, I've given that a lot of thought and wondered if you've got kind of a gut answer.
So I have sort of two answers. On the tech end, I feel like things are going to keep moving along, and there's going to be an increasing number of the ands, which is like amazing, exciting, inspiring, good things happening, and terrible, bad things happening that underscore the power of technology in our lives. You know, on the political and the stuff that worries us about where and why we live, where we live and stuff, I am not optimistic. And partly it's because this is going to be the year where like the 2020 presidential stuff starts drums beating. And boy, I'm not inspired by anything.
So I'm going to surprise you and say I think 2019 is going to be a fantastic year.
Oh,
and I'll tell you why. Because I think the really bad moment has passed. I think that if the midterms had gone sideways, that would have been bad. I think if Mueller had been fired, that would have been bad. I think if, you know, I think that because I think our government works better when no single party has control of all the levers of power. And I think that the fact that we now have something of a balanced government, and I think you're going to see more compromise, more debate, more arm wrestling, more quote across the aisle, whatever the hell that means. But I, you know, and I think that whatever the outcome of the Trump thing, I think it's not going to get swept under the carpet. There was a moment where I was afraid it was going to, but that moment has passed. And so I think
so does that theory carry a corollary that maybe the Supreme Court confirmation hearings was the low point? Because boy, that was about when things were as sad as they could possibly be. Or is it just more that Trump has ground us so down that there's now nowhere to go but up?
No, look, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you're going to see some normalization. And I think
good normalization, not normalization of bad things.
No. Good. Yeah.
You know, insane.
It isn't clear to me where we end up with Trump and Mueller and, you know, impeachment or all of that complexity. And I'm cautiously optimistic that things will sort themselves out. But net, I think we're going to see a good, frothy, complicated, but healthy 2019. I think 18 was essentially all of the things coming to the fore, both in terms of tech and its responsibility and fake news and its responsibility. And now I think you're going to start to see some changes. So that's,
look, on the tech front, the good things are going to be, there's going to be regulation that's going to be addressed. And I would like to see under a Democratic Congress, the unrip Van Winkling of net neutrality, because that one got pulled out from under our, eyes without even, because it was the 7th most interesting thing on every news cycle.
With that, we are out of time. Have an excellent New Year's. We will be back for our first show of 2019.
2019.
Party on, Garth.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.